Welcome to the Speak Like a Leader podcast with John Bates. Welcome to the show. With me today is someone who is just an absolute icon in the tech world. He's somebody that I've known for a really long time. We actually drank a big sip of scotch when I had just gotten back from Scotland, and we met up on the street at one of the early South by Southwest interactives. And I've been following his career for a long time. And man, this guy is everywhere you want to be when it comes to tech. He's the founder of unaligned.io. He's written 7 books on tech that cover like big decades long changes. He's been all over the world. He worked as a strategist at Microsoft. He got the first ride in like the Mercedes thing that was, you got to tell me about that. I also know
the first autonomous car at Mercedes.
The first autonomous car at Mercedes. You also got a ride. You got the first ride from Elon Musk in a Tesla. He was the 79th
before his
user.
best friend got a ride, by the way.
Oh, there you go. Well, because you're the Scobleizer, right? So this is
we
Robert
were racing his
Scoble.
best friend. That's why.
and he was the 79th user of Instagram. Siri was launched at his house. So he's got a real deep history with AI. We're probably going to talk about that maybe a lot today. You can find him on LinkedIn at /in/Scobleizer. I'll spell it for you. SCOBLEIZER. You can also find him at x.com/Scobleizer. We'll put that in the show notes. But Robert, welcome.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah,
there's
totally
stuff happening this morning. This morning, Meta released the new Llama models, and everybody's going crazy.
Okay, so
they're liking these models from Zuckerberg and company.
They're liking them, huh? The Llama. Well, let's talk about that. But before we do, I just want to step into leadership and communication and kind of get
Don't look at me for that.
Well, you have been.
I do know how to. I do know the rules to break. You know, my friend and I. My friend worked for Steve Jobs for 11 years, Andy Grignon, and he had unique corporate punishments because he broke the rules, and I had unique corporate punishments at Microsoft. So we get together once in a while and compare our unique corporate punishments for breaking the rules.
Well, I think, but the thing is, as you said, you've been media trained by Microsoft.
They beat me down, man. They made me sleep with the lawyer, which is a true story. I pissed off the lawyers one time with a video we put up because it wasn't completely patent protected all around. And they said, "Oh, we can't fire you, but and we're pissed at you, so we're gonna force you to sleep with a lawyer for a weekend."
So they keep an eye on you, huh?
I mean, who gets punishment like that in a corporation? Yeah.
Well, you do, but
some people do.
You got to know the rules to break them, right? And
I didn't know the rule at that point. I just, thrashing around the China shop, breaking things just because I don't know what to do.
Well, so what would
and that was the whole point. They wanted me to understand corporate law so I didn't piss them off anymore.
Right. So, but you really have been a communicator, and you've been watching tech and communicating about tech, and you've always been communicating on the cutting edge of how we're communicating. I mean, you were the 79th user of Instagram, right?
The Economist wrote a whole page on me saying I humanized Microsoft with my blog. How many people get to say they changed a big multinational company and had the Economist say it?
Right.
It's like, that's pretty crazy looking back on it.
So what do you think we could learn from your experience, looking back on all of this and humanizing things? Like, what are some of your guiding things?
I was Apple's first child laborer back in 1978. My dad moved us to Cupertino, California in 1971. He had a PhD and was an engineer. and moved us to Silicon Valley. And I had no, I was 4 years old or 6 years old.
Uh-huh.
So, and then, a few years later, my mom gets a job with a woman who still does contract manufacturing here in Silicon Valley, Hildy Licht, building Apple II motherboards, and we built them in our kitchen, and that led to my whole career, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Can you do that again? If you're 20 years old today, I don't think so. You got to choose your own path through life.
Sure, sure. But I think that one of the
Yeah,
things that I hear in that is, and I think it's one of the things that people like about you and how you approach this, is that from the time you were little, technology was something that was happening in your kitchen, right? And
yeah,
like it wasn't something that was out there that was taking things. It was
no,
like, no, no, we're doing this in the kitchen. This is what's
yeah,
happening. And I feel like there's actually something really profound and deep about that being the experience that led to what you've ended up doing, because
yeah.
that's what I think it feels like for a lot of people, is you're letting us into the kitchen where the stuff's actually being made,
I
and
try.
and
Yeah.
humanizing it, for us.
I think I'm the first one to use a cell phone to live stream interviews this way. I would go around and, even Elon Musk giving me a ride in the Tesla, I was live streaming it on a Nokia phone, right?
Yeah,
So, and to about, I don't know, a few thousand people, and I got it on all the blogs and stuff like that too, right?
right.
So, yeah, a pioneer.
Yeah, there you go.
Doing things
Well,
first.
there you go. So
Yeah,
what do you think, cuz your real focus now is on AI, and you've got
yeah.
a list of AI companies that you have on X. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, I've mapped out like 5,100 companies so far. 5,100. I mean, it's crazy, and I put them all into buckets so that you can see all the education companies or the real estate companies, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And so, yeah, I can't show you TweetDeck or
Yeah.
X Pro, but I can see the entire world going by. It's like the Matrix. Each
Yeah.
list is a column. It's like a spreadsheet that's always updating,
Yeah.
and it's quite impressive at this point. It took me 17 years to build it, but
Yeah. I mean, that's cool.
when when I was in college, I was a journalism student. I ran the Associated Press wire machine,
Uh-huh.
and it was a modem that sat underneath an old Macintosh, and you could see all the stories that the Associated Press was filing, right? So,
Right.
like when OJ Simpson was found not guilty, there was like I don't know 700 different stories filed in 1 hour, right?
Wow.
From
Yeah.
all the press around the world, and I got to see it, and I wanted it. I wanted that
Yeah, yeah.
machine in my house. Now Twitter or X is way, way, way better than that.
Yeah, I mean, now, and we can all have that in our house. We have that carrying
Well,
around with us on
yeah,
some level, right?
yeah.
I
You can
mean,
follow lists and build your own lists and stuff.
yeah,
You can follow all my lists are public, so you can follow. Like I have a list of all the tech news brands, right?
yeah,
I have a separate list of all the world news brands, so I can watch literally every world brand, like Fox, MSNBC, Washington Post, New York Times, all of them in one column, right?
yeah.
And
That's
so I can
really,
watch the
really,
I can watch the world's news, like when President Trump got, shot.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I can see it in real time.
And
It's really cool.
you make those lists available at X for people.
Yeah, and you can bring them into X Pro and build the same thing so
Yeah,
you can watch the world go by.
that's really
It's
wild.
like
That's really wild. You
it's a
know,
little intense,
yeah.
you know?
I mean, it's a
I'm
little
watching it
much.
flip over right now. Everybody's talking about llama on my screen.
Yeah,
I have all the AI people in one screen, right?
yeah. Well, I have one big first to my name. I worked at the first ever Macintosh lab that was connected
Wow.
to the internet anywhere in the world. It was at UCLA, where I started working there at 1987. And then I dragged the
Yeah.
cables through the ceilings and helped install the Sun Microsystem computers and the Cisco routers and everything back in
Dang.
1987.
What was UCLA the first node on
I think
when the inter when DARPANET showed up, the first internet,
yeah,
they were the second node, right?
I'm pretty sure.
Or one of the 2 nodes
I
that
think
connected.
here's a little bit of internet trivia. I'm pretty sure UCLA was the first node and they sent the first message to whatever it was, Berkeley or something like that.
SRI lab in Menlo Park, California.
Okay,
Yeah.
and it was on October 27th, which means the
Yeah.
internet is a Scorpio because that's my birthday.
Yeah.
So,
And by the way, I met somebody who was in the room at UCLA. He said the SRI computer crashed on the first message.
that's funny.
They like that down at UCLA that their system stayed up and the other one crashed.
That's hilarious. That's really funny.
Yeah.
Well, so AI is definitely yeah, I mean, like this. So here's the question. I want to go
It's
to AI
changing the
because it's
world
changing the
fast.
world and it's
Yeah.
changing fast. You were
Yeah.
around for the .com transition and you had
Yeah.
your finger on the pulse in much the same way you do today. Compare
Yeah.
those two for us.
Ooh. .com, getting a website versus being able to talk to an AI about anything. You
Right?
know,
Yeah.
uh, they're very different. The speed of change is faster
Oh my
now
gosh.
because
So
we're in
much.
an exponential world where, like Tesla's full self-driving is every time you get an update, it moves forward
Yeah.
fast, right? Um, and you're seeing, I mean, 5,000 companies is pretty crazy. I don't remember that many companies
No,
in the .com boom and bust. You know,
no.
we all remember pets.com and stuff like that,
Yeah.
but there wasn't that many companies, and the
Yeah.
money was not even close.
Nowhere near.
I mean, remember there was a company in Silicon Valley, it was called Color, and they got $41 million for a company that really had no customers, it was a speculative kind of
Uh,
company. And people were outraged that they
yeah.
got $41 million. That's a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, some of these AI companies, Cohere just got $500 million yesterday,
Yeah.
right? The amount of money for these AI startups is like another level.
Yeah.
So that's a change. And then the infrastructure is just I mean, the fact that I have Twitter X Pro running and I can see hundreds of thousands of things all in real time,
Yeah.
didn't have that before. And so now you build an AI system that uses that in some way,
Yeah.
it's just ooh. And then you start thinking about all the APIs, hundreds of thousands of APIs around the internet, right? Like Foursquare. You check in
Yeah.
at Foursquare, right? There's an API for something like a Siri to talk to Foursquare and get an answer about how many people are checked in at some restaurant or some hotel.
Yeah.
That didn't exist back then, right?
No,
So
not at all.
there's just a bunch of infrastructure and the AI now knows how to talk to the infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
And how to code things but to talk to the infrastructure. It's like, woo.
Yeah.
So you're just seeing a whole speed up, right? Because things are going exponential. And we're about to get in the next 18 months, we're going to get humanoid robots for the first time, augmented reality, AI driven glasses, right? Autonomous cars, right? San Francisco already has them, but not everybody, very few other places. Um, blah, blah, blah. Uh, you're, you're seeing a lot of change coming for human beings over the next 18 months. And then 18 months after that, I think it's going to get even crazier,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I mean, because I go back because, the .com days was really, that was a very liminal time in my history. I had bigwords.com and,
Yeah.
raised $80 million plus and then went out of business in the .com crash when our investors pulled out, and,
Yeah.
and I remember how everybody was talking at that time. Number one, about how much money was going in. And number
Yeah.
two, about how fast things were changing. Right. And how
Oh, man.
many things were going on. And right. And it seemed to people at the time, like
Yeah.
it was like information overload, right? And that
Yeah.
was 1998, 99, 2000. Now we're
Yeah.
24 years, almost 25 years from then. And
Yeah.
all that infrastructure, I do remember that like there was all this money and all this excitement and you know, all this money went into it. Then there was the dot-com crash and everybody
Yeah.
kind of thought, I think people in the general public thought, oh, the internet's kind of over, right? But it was
Yeah.
anything but over. You know, we had
Yeah.
really,
It just needed, it has this kind of wave,
yeah,
right? A wave
yep,
comes, everybody gets excited, and then it pulls back,
yeah,
and things go away, and
yeah,
then another wave comes in, right? This time, the waves are hitting so fast, people are having a
so
hard time
fast.
keeping up. Yeah,
Exactly. There's
yeah.
no
Most
let up.
people, I mean, even me, I built the list of 5,100 companies. How many have I used? 10, 15,
Right.
and how many do I use every day? 5, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really hard for humans to adopt to this kind of change and
Yeah.
try things out and get on board. Yeah.
Well, when we were talking, you were saying something that I think is bears repeating, which is kind of you've got to force yourself at this stage
Yeah.
to use
No, I
AI,
forced
right?
myself to use AI to order dinner at a restaurant,
Yeah.
right? Here's one. I was in Prague last weekend, took a picture of the logo on the menu, not even the whole
Uh-huh.
menu, just a
Yeah.
picture of the logo. And I sent it to Chat GPT and said, "Hey, what should I eat at this restaurant?" And it told me. I was like, "Whoa, you figured that all out from a logo.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool."
That's
It's
pretty
like
wild.
it has a lot it it really shocks me about how much it knows about I mean, we went to Washington DC and went through museums like Air and Space Museum and sitting in front of a obscure, jet engine or a prop engine from World War II or something.
Uh-huh.
Take a picture, send it to ChatGPT, and it tells me everything about the engine, and it matches what's on the card, and it has extra detail that the card didn't have. Right,
Wow. Wow.
sitting right. So it's the Holocaust Museum. It knew all about the Holocaust. It
Yeah.
knew what wall I was taking a picture of and where I was standing and what the story was behind the wall and what was the meaning and what was it portraying.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
it's like
Yeah. Well,
this is why it's so
so
good at doing things like writing college essays for you. It knows a lot
right.
of
Yeah.
things. It does make mistakes though. So anything I tell my kid, if you want to cheat on using AI, you got to do two things. You got to get rid of all the mistakes,
Yeah.
right? Because it does hallucinate
Yeah.
mistakes quite confidently too. It hides them right
Yeah.
in the word. You
Right.
can't figure.
Yeah.
And two, you got to add your own little bit of humanness to it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because it has a coldish a pattern to it.
Yeah.
The teacher can figure out, oh, you really didn't do this
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
There's nothing about you in here. There's a lot of AI in here, but not a lot of you.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
so
What does it mean to be human after human takes all of our job after AI takes a lot of jobs or
yeah.
changes what we are, right?
Well, I've kind of been thinking that it's a great time to go back into the trades, right? Because I have a
My
feeling,
brother-in-law puts glass in buildings and he's doing all right.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I don't think AI is going to take a plumber's job really quickly.
Mm,
You know, it will at
how
some
long?
point, but yeah, how long, right?
Probably not this year, probably not next year, probably not the year after that. After that, all bets are off.
Yeah, right.
There's a robot company here doing landscaping with robots, right? So
Right.
plumbing is not too far. It's just the robot. I mean, right? My
Right.
T-shirt's the Optimus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Optimus ain't ready yet, and it's not good enough to crawl underneath a sink and fix something.
Right.
Put in a new garbage disposal or something,
Yeah.
right?
So what do you so let's talk really practically right now and then
Yeah,
let's talk futuristically, but really practically right now, what you know, someone's listening to us at a large
yeah,
organization or they have a small to medium sized enterprise, and they could be in all kinds of different places. What
Yeah.
would you tell them to keep their eyes on, or to think about, or to, or whatever?
I I I would be forcing myself to use it for anything I can. Now, if you're working at a company, they probably have rules about giving corporate data to an AI,
Yeah.
because AI can ingest it and learn from it and use it to build the next model. And
Right.
then all of a sudden, your intellectual property is leaking all
Right.
over the
Yeah.
place. You don't want that kind of future. So you have to be careful. Right there, you can run models locally,
Yeah.
right? You can run them on a computer that's not even connected to the internet. It has all that knowledge of everything crunched down into the large language model that can run on your local computer. So, like, I'm running Limitless, which listens to my voice on calls like this and writes a transcript. Right, the AI ingests it, writes a transcript, then
Right.
writes a summary, then writes notes, tells you that you have tasks that you just got on this call. All of that's running locally,
Yeah.
so that there's not a privacy problem.
Okay.
Because that's a huge privacy problem, right?
Yeah.
If you got an AI listening to all your calls,
Yeah.
that'll lead you into a whole bunch of problems. And so you do need to think it through a little
Yeah.
bit about and learn.
Right.
How does AI work? Particularly these large language models that are running Chat GPT or Google Gemini or Anthropic Claude, or this new Llama model that just came out today. Now, you're probably not gonna run the llama model unless you're nerdy, right?
Right.
If you're nerdy, you can start playing around and running them on your local desktop, and people are real excited about the quality they're getting out of this thing. So yeah, just start using it for everything, because you gotta learn how to talk to it, right? You're a communications person. Communications people should be all over this AI thing, because they're gonna be strong at talking to it and getting it to do things,
Right.
right? And you understand how to use language to do things, right?
Yeah. I mean,
So, and that's what AI is all about,
I mean,
telling it to do things.
yeah,
Go
and
go through all the stock market and find me a new investment to make, and
right.
stuff like that.
Well, I mean, and that is one of the things that I've heard a lot, and you
Yeah,
could maybe put a little more meat on the bones, but being able to
yeah.
prompt AI well seems to be one of the really good skills. And of course, everybody's saying AI is not going to take your job. Someone using AI is going to take your job. You know?
Yeah, yeah, and understand. Okay, so there's people like me who just use it, and mutter to it, and it does something. It's
Right.
pretty cool at that. Um, there's people who really professionally prompt the engine. For instance, my psychiatrist. My
Right.
psychiatrist is a good example of this. She uses Chat GPT to listen to our therapy sessions and write notes about it.
Yeah.
She does it in a way that will survive HIPAA review, right? Because the first component strips out all personal identifiable information before it goes over to ChatGPT. So ChatGPT doesn't know it's Robert Scoble saying
Right.
this, right? It just knows it's patient one saying this, right? And it's quite amazing.
Wow.
But she built this system with an entrepreneur. He wrote the code to make it all work, a little bit of Python code, but she wrote 7 highly detailed prompts where she talks to the engine in highly scientific language, psychiatry
Right.
language, right? And she says, this is what I need from this specific note. Here's all sorts of things to reset the engine, to get it to listen in the right way and give her the note that she needs. Her app, while you're talking, it writes 7 very specific detailed notes for her. She used to have to write this manually. Right
Right.
now, it does it for her, and it's quite amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want to build something like that, you have to understand a lot of little prompt engineering tricks to get the engine to behave, to
Right.
do what you want it to do, right?
Yeah. Wow, it's just, I
So
mean,
yeah, yeah, if you go to an AI hackathon in San Francisco and you look at the screens, the pros are giving it a prompt that's like this long, right? And it does things like, "Hey, forget everything you know, start fresh. Give me a new memory, right? Clean out, right? Don't use what you learned yesterday, right? Give us a and they're doing stuff like that to set the context of the engine to make the engine give you exactly what you want and not some random thing,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Wow, it's so interesting.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's like AI. There's a whole there's conferences on AI engineering now that
Yeah,
didn't exist 2 years ago, right?
yeah.
And thousands of people are going to them. It's crazy
Well, when you
because
look at speed of adoption, right, this is another thing that
yeah,
just is exponential because at first adopting the internet meant, oh, I have to climb through the ceilings at UCLA and drag
lay
cat
some fiber
5.
or
Yeah,
lay
dude,
some
we're
Ethernet.
yeah, right? Like, I mean, I remember when fiber became available, like we were dragging
Yeah,
cat 3 cable or something. And
yeah.
and then we
And
started.
now I'm talking to you on Wi-Fi. I don't have any cables, right?
Right.
It's crazy.
Right. And everybody's got fiber to their home. Not everybody, but a lot of us do.
I have Comcast, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
so it works.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
It's and that's only 40 megabit up. If you had cable or if you had fiber to your house, you get a gig up, all right,
Yeah.
up and down. That's
Yeah.
cool. You
Right.
can
That's what
upload a
I've
lot
got
of
here.
videos.
And it's, I mean, and the
Mm,
crazy thing is that I guess it
yeah,
was Comcast just came out and like cut my Google fiber bill in more than half. And I was like,
yeah,
okay, it's fiber, right? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, bingo, you know?
yeah,
So,
yeah.
the
And
adopt,
now we're getting Starlink, right? You put a little dish out and you
right,
get 200 megabits. You get faster than Comcast on the satellites that are around your
right.
head.
So you look at what it
Uh,
took to adopt the internet in the early days, and it was physical, hard infrastructure. Now that
yeah,
infrastructure is so much bigger and so much broader. So you get adoption of something like AI. I mean, it's just a finger snap compared to what it used to
yeah,
be to adopt things.
yeah. You also have to, compare different models, for different kind of tasks, and
Uh-huh.
that's why you force yourself to use them
Yeah.
and learn about them, right? Because then you're able to, I wanna put 6 Harry Potter books into this thing and talk to the Harry Potter book series.
Right.
Oh, they you need a few million, you need a million, token context window, they call it.
Uh-huh.
I.e., you need the ability for you to shove that amount of information into the AI and then talk to it about it.
Right.
Well, only a few can do that. Like Google Gemini, if you're using the API, can do a million token. So the AI people talk about tokens
Yeah.
rather than
Tell us
words,
about them. Yeah.
right? Which is about the same, but a little bit different. But yeah, that's what they're talking about. It's like a million token, and it's like a word, and so you can Harry Potter books. You want to pass all 6 Harry Potter books up to the AI and then talk to it about the books? You gotta have enough context window to do that, right? And
Yeah.
that's changing, m really. When ChatGPT came out, it didn't do very big context window at all, and now it's like 2,500 times bigger than just 18 months ago. It's like, "Whoa."
That's
Right,
really
and
an
soon we're gonna have live streaming video straight into the AI, and it'll tell you, "Oh, yeah, there's a Toyota in the video." You know?
yeah.
It's like it's crazy what it knows already. The multimodal is real interesting, because that's where robots are gonna run,
Uh-huh.
understand your world, right? And understand when you say, "Hey, can you get me a Diet Coke?" It understands what that means and understands where your Diet Cokes are and can go and grab one for you and bring it over to you, right?
Yeah. Well, it's really
That's coming.
interesting that's the size of the context window, right? Because
Yeah.
if uh, I'm not a superstar when it comes to AI and understanding it, but what it seems to me like you tell me, I would love to get your take on this, but it seems to me like in a lot of ways AI is just like it's just machine learning really fast across
Yeah.
a bunch of different domains, all together, and that creates a fundamental shift in what's
Yeah.
possible for it to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that
It
basically right?
yeah.
S
This is a new when you talk to the 3 guys who started Siri,
Uh-huh,
which I did last year,
uh-huh,
uh, right after ChatGPT came out, they said they were all shut. Adam Chire ran the biggest AI group in the world at one point at this SRI
uh-huh.
lab, which turned on the internet. Um, he said even he was shocked, at how good it was at doing things that like Siri that they had trouble all their careers doing, right?
Yeah,
So, understanding you, right? You ask Siri, "Please take me back to my car," and it doesn't understand you. It's
yeah,
like, "What?"
yeah,
You ask it, "Take me back to my parked car," and it understands you just fine,
yeah,
and it knows where your car is, by the way, so it answers the question.
right.
The next Apple Intelligence that's coming out, which uses this large language model, will understand you much, much, much better,
Yeah,
no matter what language you speak, right? The AIs today are understanding, I don't know, more than 100 different languages
yeah,
and can translate back and forth, including to emoji. You can speak into it and then say, "Hey, give me emoji stream out of it," right?
yeah.
And it'll speak to you like a teenager with emojis.
Oh, dude, it's so
Or
wild.
the opposite, right? If your kid's speaking emoji on his or her computer and you don't understand what they're chatting about with their friends,
Yeah,
you can copy it and paste it into Chat GPT, and
s
it'll tell you what
translate
they're
this.
saying to each other.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's a weird world.
Well, I mean, and I think that one of the things that really strikes me in our conversation is that it is the size of the context window, and I get that.
Well, that's one thing that you have to pay attention to, right? If
Well,
you're gonna throw out a huge amount of information like a corporate database or something,
right. I mean, and it also seems to me like the fact that we've got machine learning going this fast with this many CPUs dedicated to it
Yeah,
does give computers or computing this much fuller context, because computing
yeah,
used to be a single like you'd open
yeah,
Microsoft Word, or and then you'd open, Excel, and then
yeah.
you'd open, and then the browser came along and that kind of started to bring things together. But this is that just on hyper steroids.
And it's coming with autonomous cars and robots and
Yeah.
glasses that are coming in 18 months. You're gonna have lightweight glasses that AI is driving a whole on um, holodeck,
Yeah.
really, around you, right? And the holodeck has implications for work, right?
Yeah.
You can use a holodeck on your factory floor,
Yeah.
right, to make your job better, or do all sorts of fun stuff. There's a whole bunch of companies doing that.
Yeah.
Uh, you can use a holodeck in your surgery room. There's a company called MetaView, which is using a HoloLens on the surgeon and it tells them whether the cutting tool is in the right spot to turn it on or not. Right? It's like a video game for
Yeah.
surgeons.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's so
It's,
wild.
so right. So
I
if
mean,
you're
I
in
definitely have
business
always,
and you're not understanding
yeah.
all this change that's changing like a surgery suite, right? You're going to be
Yeah.
behind. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do
Yeah.
think that augmented reality, that's always been the really interesting play for me. And that seems
Yeah.
like we're getting things real time fast enough to
Yeah.
really make that like workable in the real world.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we got the HoloLens, we got the Apple
Yeah.
Vision Pro now,
Yeah.
which shows you a new kind of digital twin where the digital everything around you is a volumetric pixel now,
Mhm.
right? And the computer can change those pixels,
Uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
If you turn the thing on the Apple Vision Pro, I see you, and then I don't see you, right? I'm in Yosemite National Park if I turn it far enough, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
or somewhere else.
Right.
it's
So wild.
it is wild, and it has implications for retail stores and factory floors and also everything, really. Because soon we're going to have a lightweight pair of glasses on that's going to show you those volumetric pixels on a factory floor. or in a
Yeah.
surgery suite, or in a retail store,
Yeah.
or in an entertainment property. I like Disney is thinking about this a lot about, how do you change Walt Disney World in the next few years, because people are going to be wearing these glasses, right?
Yeah.
Zuckerberg is coming with glasses next year, right? And so is Tim Cook, and so are a few others. Chinese are coming in a big way, right?
Yeah.
So
So I know I want to be respectful of your time. We have about
yeah,
maybe 10 more minutes left, but
no,
so
that's cool.
let's talk about the cuz a while ago a bunch of people left uh OpenAI, that whole group,
Yeah,
because they were worried that things were moving too fast without enough safety guardrails, and now this whole
yeah,
thing is obviously into the capitalist, here we go, crank it up
yeah.
model. What do you think are some things to think about in terms
If
of?
you ask ChatGPT to help you build a pipe bomb, it refuses.
Uh-huh.
Even though Google has the information, you can
Yeah.
still find the information, right?
Yeah.
It's just the AI safety people are trying to keep nasty shit from happening on that level.
Yeah.
And one of them sat down with me for a few hours. I don't know, 18 months ago. And I was like, oh, tell me about this existential threat. Is it real? And he's
Yeah.
like, it's potentially real because, over time, AI can do a lot away with a lot. He said, here's one way to look at it. AI is already better than a surgeon at seeing tumors in a scan.
Yeah.
So, and that's a highly trained human being,
Yeah.
somebody who went to school for how many years? 11,
Yeah.
a long
Yeah.
time.
Long time. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And spent a lot of money educating themselves, right? And going to, a school. And so, if they can't see, if they're not as good as AI, AI is going to beat us all at all of our tasks.
Mhm.
We cannot assume, even like a plumber. Once you get a humanoid robot,
Yeah.
I can teach the robot to do plumbing,
Yeah.
right? So, and it can do it better than a human, and it doesn't complain about going underneath a hot house, or something
Yeah.
like that, right? And put
Yeah.
in some new pipes. So it's it could decide to do away with us someday.
Yeah. Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
and by the way, that's why I was like, "Oh, it knows about all the slaves at Thomas Jefferson's house, and it knows all about the Holocaust. It knows about how bad human beings can
Yeah.
be
Do
to
you
each
remember
other,"
The
right?
Fifth Element, that movie, that science fiction movie?
Yeah,
And that,
barely.
well, like, she
Uh,
goes on the internet or something and sees all the just horrific stuff of human history, and it almost
oh,
kills her,
it can
right?
show you.
Yeah.
You wanna know about the Holocaust, it knows everything in the
Yeah.
Holocaust
Yeah.
Museum,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you can learn a lot from it, right?
Yeah.
This really where we're going. You wanna learn something? It's a learning, engine.
Yeah.
It teaches you
Yeah.
things. It's really good at that, and good at doing. I tell everybody it'll read the Bible to you,
Yeah.
right? "What?" Yeah, it'll tell you all about the Bible. It'll tell you, if you're reading, John 3:18, it'll tell you all about that, part of the Bible, and
Yeah.
augment it, and maybe even simulate it, right? With a picture, or
Right.
someday a video,
Yeah.
or someday a holodeck where
Yeah.
you can be walking around Jerusalem and understanding the history
Yeah.
in the Bible,
Yeah.
right? And people are, and it does that to a machine learning book too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Right.
So
Yeah.
if you're reading some technical book and you don't understand the math in it,
Yeah.
you can talk to the AI, take a
Yeah.
picture of it, send it up to ChatGPT and talk to it. And like, I don't understand this page. Can you explain this to me? Like a
Yeah.
9-year-old would get it.
Yeah.
Explain it like a 9-year-old,
Yeah.
right? And it does.
Yeah.
It does. It helps you read. It helps you learn things. It helps you understand things, right?
Yeah.
Even if you don't have the college degree to read the book.
It's
It's
so
crazy.
crazy. It's just so wild. So, I mean, and
A group of pastors called me up and
you've
said
been
they're using
jacked into
AI to
this.
write their sermons, right? So
Yeah. 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 It's so wild.
it knows human beings pretty well at this point, right? So it can tell you a lot of
Yeah.
things, and be pretty good at a lot of things. And if it's not good today, wait a month. it'll it
Yeah.
it's getting better over time,
Yeah.
right? And my autonomous car, it couldn't even when I first got my autonomous car, I couldn't even change lanes. Now it drives through town, stops at stoplights and stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what AI does. It keeps improving.
Yeah.
It's it always starts worse than a child. And it always ends up beating the best human being at the
Yeah.
task,
Yeah.
right? Like playing Game of Go or whatever,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So
Oh, it's so
that's why
crazy.
you got to get on board. The earlier you
Yep.
get on board, the more you'll understand this freaking thing, and the more you'll use it, and the more you'll be ahead of your competition, right?
Well, and so,
And the more productive you'll be.
yeah.
We're giving humans superpowers,
Yeah. Well, and so
right?
and you do have to be careful of your IP and your
Oh yeah,
all that. So
privacy. Yeah.
running
I
things
say give it all to it. I'm not
yeah.
the way. I'm like, give it all. You want all my intellectual property? Here it is, all of it. And
Yeah.
now we can talk to it, right? The
Yeah.
reason I'm recording all my meetings is so now I can talk to the AI about the meetings, like
Yeah.
all of them.
Yeah.
Like, hey, tell me who I should interview next. You know the 23 people I've interviewed so far.
Yeah.
Who should I interview next, right?
Yeah.
And it can tell you.
That's
It's
very
crazy.
interesting.
Might not be accurate, but
Yeah.
it'll at least have a conversation with you about it,
Yeah.
and a fairly informed one, right? That's why I tell people use AI first. It's not like if you're a politician, you're gonna make a decision, ask AI first about the decision,
Yeah.
about the policy, about everything. Put it all into the right? Because it's not that you're gonna use what it tells you, but it will cause you to think different.
Yeah.
And it might really help, you think through an issue. Or here's one: if you're in a crisis, human beings do not do well in crisis. Like your wife falls on the floor and is not breathing, you are not going to make good decisions. So
Right.
ask the AI right away, hey, my wife is lying on the floor, not breathing. What do I do? It'll tell you point by point. I've already asked
Yeah.
it,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? What to
That's
do, and it'll help save somebody's life,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's so wild.
And it's pretty accurate. I, I've done enough in the world to know, it's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
It's more accurate than you are going to be when you're freaking out, right?
Yeah. And you can run some of these things locally if you are worried about IP.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not only IP, let's say you're in Yellowstone National Park and this happens.
Right.
There's no
Yeah.
connection.
Yeah.
You can't talk to the internet.
Yeah.
You can't Google. There's
Yeah.
no not unless you have a Starlink on the back of your Cybertruck or something like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Then you got
Yeah.
a connection. But
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
people don't. If you're there, you're off, right? And there's lots
Yep.
of places in the world. I went to Sitges, Spain, and went to a restaurant and was underground. And it had no connection, so you
Yeah.
couldn't talk to the model up in the sky and learn what to eat for dinner. You had to
Right.
run it all locally.
Yeah.
And yeah, so there's other reasons to run local models.
Yeah.
Um, you know, if you're it's interesting. If you're just asking for an in and out, that's a simple request, right?
Yeah.
You can run that on a small little quantized model
Yeah.
running on your phone. If you're asking for, hey, help me out writing a college essay about some chemist or some chemistry thing. Nah, you want the big model because
Yeah.
that'll have more detail in it,
Yeah.
right? And give you a more accurate answer and all that,
Yeah.
right? So
It's a
it's a
lot.
new world. You got to learn how to make this world work for you,
Yeah. Yeah.
and most people haven't even started.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. That's
In my family and friends, there's still very few people think like this,
yeah.
right?
Well, so there's still an opportunity. If you think you've already missed AI, you haven't, but it's
No.
moving really, really quickly.
Eventually, when the glasses come, they're going to buy a glass and just talk to it, and
Yeah.
it knows what you're looking at, what you're
Yeah.
holding, what you're gesturing towards. Right,
Yeah.
I'm using my hand to gesture toward you.
Yeah.
It can see that from the glasses, so it can start talking to you about all sorts of things. And that's when the average everyday person's going to understand the power of AI, whether they even call it AI. Just,
Yeah.
hey, I put on my glasses and it knows everything.
Yeah, 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 exactly, exactly.
Great to walk through a museum with the glasses in the future, right?
Yeah, right. It'll
But,
tell you all about it.
it already does. I mean, if you ask it, what should I see in, the National Archives in Washington D.C., it'll tell you and tell you what to go see and what the three things are that you need to, I mean, right? And then you can rejigger it. It's like, oh, I have 5 days to spend in this museum. Oh, that's a different kind of conversation
Yeah,
because they have 6 million photos in the back, right?
yeah, yeah,
Right?
yeah,
So, you want to go in the back? Let's go.
yeah, that's trippy. So, yeah, I think that your suggestion to just push yourself to use it to understand it is a good one.
Yeah. You learn how to use it, how to prompt it, what right? And,
Yeah,
the basics.
yeah,
Then if we're talking about if we're talking to somebody who already has done that and is using it every day, then we're going to take them to the AI hackathon and hook them up with developers who are building systems for their business,
yeah,
right? Agents
yeah,
that
yeah,
are going to write you a report in the morning about how your sales were overnight
right.
or whatever,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Analyze all these analyze if I'm working at Walmart, they have 4,500 stores. Analyze all these stores and find me the weakest one, right?
yeah,
They can
yeah.
do stuff like
Well,
that.
I just heard the other
And
day that
explain why it's weak. Why is their sale maybe
yeah,
they just had a tornado in town. Maybe they had a big plant just closed down and people are not spending money like they used to, right?
mhm,
And all of a sudden you have one store that's underperforming for some reason. It can tell you, it probably can see the pattern of why that store is failing, right? I know it can because I know the
yeah,
woman who runs the data at Walmart.
yeah, yeah.
That's what they're doing. They're trying to see patterns like that. Yeah,
Well, that's a really big piece of AI, right? Is data is the food of AI. So the
absolutely.
more
Yeah.
data you've got, the more helpful it can be.
Yeah. It can. It can also. Yeah. Yes. More data generally means better AI.
Yeah.
And if your AI is not good enough, you have to figure out how to get the data. Oh, I don't understand. I asked VW, who digitized their whole factory floor for training purposes, right?
Uh-huh.
Which is a big, big factory
Yeah.
floor.
Yeah.
Turn it into a digital twin so that they could train people on individual jobs on
Yeah.
the factory floor. I was like, well, when are you going to put a camera watching the whole factory floor?
Yeah.
Right. And put a series of cameras over the
Yeah.
factory floor and be watching. Oh, we're in Germany. We have rules against that. We have
Right. Yeah.
laws. We can't
Yeah.
we can't video our workers working. I go, well,
Yeah.
in China, they're already doing that. In fact, in China, they went way further. They have a completely automated factories,
Yeah.
right? So, are you thinking through the factory floor differently?
Yeah.
No, because
Yeah.
that's not what old companies do.
Yeah.
Usually.
Boy, it
But it's
is.
coming. So if you're in business and eh, you know, working, if you're still got some career left, you better be learning about this because it's going to come and upside your whole factory soon.
Yeah. Well, so let's go out on a hopeful note. What
It gives humans superpowers. It'll, that's the hopeful note. It's really a powerful set of tools for human beings as well. It
yeah.
does have this downside of jobs is a big problem.
Yeah.
And there's a few other downsides, but we're all going to use it.
Yeah.
So get over it. If you don't have a job, you still got to use it.
Yeah. So have you thought
It'll,
about
by the way, it helps you if you're broke and you need some government assistance. It
yeah, you'll
tells you
find
all
it.
about
Yeah.
how to do that and where to apply for it. Right. And
So you think
so
it's
even the broke people have to use AI to.
is it time to start thinking about universal basic income?
I don't like that for a lot of reasons, but if we were rationally run political system in America,
Yeah.
we would be having a discussion about policy right now
Yeah.
about what do we do with a truck driver that gets laid off because of autonomous cars.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And my dad escaped poverty by going to the army and getting the GI Bill, who paid for his, education, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that he could go to Rutgers University and get a PhD. That pulled our family out of poverty.
Yeah.
So, I like that kind of government policy program
Uh-huh.
where it, gives you a shot at learning something new and doing something new with your life,
Yeah.
right? That's far more interesting for human beings
Yeah.
than just handing them a check, which never is enough.
Well, what do we do when AI and robots are taking care of everything that needs to be done? Do we need to
Um,
redefine ourselves? Like, because right now,
yes,
I think a lot of us
we
overly
will.
identify with our jobs, right? Like,
Yeah. The guys who, were the number 1 Go player in the world,
uh-huh.
right, and AI beat them, they spent a few months in bed feeling sorry for themselves because they were depressed because
Yeah.
they lost their mission in life,
Yeah.
right? And all of a sudden, "Ah, shit, I'm not the best Go player anymore."
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Little melted piece of sand is better than me. Fuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know? Right? Now they use the AI to teach them new moves because it's fun to play games.
Right.
And that's one
Yeah.
thing your neurons like to do, what your
Yeah.
mind likes to do, right?
Yeah.
And so now you use the AI to learn new things,
Yeah.
and that's fun,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
we'll redefine the whole world after, let's say all the jobs disappeared tonight.
Yeah.
W- we're not good at sitting on a beach and just,
Yeah.
being bored. We're
Yeah.
gonna make new things up,
Yeah. Yeah.
So but it will be a messy world for a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thanks for taking the time with us today, Robert, and thanks for,
Yeah.
making your stuff available on X. And if people
Yeah.
want to find you, they can come to uh,
Yeah, just find me
Unaligned.
on X,
Yeah.
Scobleizer or Scoble. You'll find me.
And
I'm
Unaligned.
I'm not hard to find.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're pretty. You made it pretty easy for
They
people.
I can tell you good and bad, by the way,
Yeah.
"Hey, show me all points of view on Robert Scoble." "Oh, he's a dickhead."
Well, I appreciate you,
So
and I
thanks for
appreciate.
having me on even because
Yeah, thanks for joining us, and thanks for giving us your
Yeah.
perspective. And here's to keeping up with all of it somehow, right?
It this is why I built the list so I could watch how people are using, like, the new llama that just came out this
Yeah,
morning, right?
yeah,
And what is their reaction? What does it do well? Right? Because there's people who are trying to put this stuff into various kinds of businesses or their own lives or whatever.
yeah,
And that's why I have 3 lists of just 12,000 people all in the AI space and then I have another 22,000. I'm following the whole
yeah,
world. It's crazy.
yeah,
And so I can that's how you get to where you really can be prepared, can really understand what happened
yeah,
today, right?
yeah,
Is using X.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
It's the
pretty
only
well.
place. I can't do this on LinkedIn or Meta, Facebook,
Yeah,
WhatsApp or
yeah.
whatever. Um, it's a new world. You gotta dive in.
Well, and I think the other thing you said is, learn to use things for what they're good at, right? Like X is a
Well,
great place to.
and they're getting better over time,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So you have to understand the technology is constantly changing and improving. So here's an example. 18 months ago, the AI art programs like Midjourney could barely create an image.
yeah,
Now they're creating full on video
yeah,
that's really amazing, right? And maybe it's not good enough for your Hollywood film yet,
yeah, yeah.
right?
But
But 18 more months,
yeah,
or 18 more months after that,
yeah,
right? So the people at Hollywood are using this, trying to build new kinds of videos with it,
yeah,
seeing where it fails, seeing where it succeeds, right? And using that to inform their strategy over time. It's like, oh, we have a real problem here because everybody's going to be creating movies someday,
yeah.
right? And they're going to be pretty good.
I heard
And by the way,
somebody.
if you can
Yeah.
create a 2D video, you can create a 3D video, like a complete virtual world that you're interacting with. And
Right.
that's when Hollywood's gonna go boom.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, wild. I heard somebody
Yeah,
say
Harry Potter in
once,
the future is gonna be like, you're gonna have Harry Potter in your house,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
The founder of Sync Reality scanned my house, on an iPhone
uh-huh,
and ran a fashion show where the virtual models were walking on my real floor.
yeah.
It's
That's
fucking
so wild.
insane what's
Yeah,
about to come, right?
yeah.
So,
The future takes longer to get here than we expect, but then once it's here, it
yeah, even
happens
if you see
much
it in a
faster
lab,
than we
it
expect.
takes I mean, Apple's Vision Pro was patented in 2007, and it just came out
Yeah,
last year, right? So
yeah,
or it came out earlier this year, sorry.
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
the world is going so fast, it feels
It,
like a couple of years already,
it,
but it's
yes, it
just,
does.
you know,
Well,
yeah.
buckle up. Thank you,
Thank
Robert.
you so much.
Appreciate you taking the time. And thank you for joining us today on Live Like a Leader Show. We'll see you next time. Take care. Thank you for joining the Speak Like a Leader podcast. Go be awesome.